we shouldn't forget the importance of people, the importance of getting on a phone call or an email and knowing that at the other end of that email or that chat, there really is a person there. There should always be a way to get to a human being.
What is one thing that you wish every leader understood about customer experience, and what does that really say about their leadership style?
The customer experience comes down to
73% of customers say experience is a key factor in purchasing decisions, just behind price and product quality. At the heart of every great business, it's not just a great product, but a feeling you give your customers, because how you make your customers feel is what they're going to remember. Welcome to the Learn It All podcast, the show for today's leaders who want to get ahead and stay ahead, because we believe great leaders aren't born or made, we're always in the making. I'm your host, Damon Lemby, two-time best-selling author and CEO of Learnit, a live learning platform that has helped upskill over 2 million people over the past 3 decades. Joining me today is Van Battle, a veteran customer experience leader who shaped teams and strategies at brands like Jamba Juice and Urban Remedy. Van's going to be sharing with me his thoughts on the real difference between customer service and customer experience, how to turn your support team into your company's most strategic asset, what most companies are getting wrong when using AI and customer experience, and what leaders must do to build a culture of ownership and trust. So you lead with the mission of stewardship. What does that actually look like when it comes to team, customer, and culture?
I think it's having an obligation to be representative of those,
Okay.
of the team members, be representative of the customer, of your environment, and having that as at the forefront of what I'm doing or what my goal is I guess it's being of service to those things. And I guess that's the word, being of service to the different parts of your organization and to the people that are in your community.
Where did you learn that mindset or that approach? Is that just something that you've always been like that way, or has it been something that you've learned and evolved over time?
I think it's been part of my journey. I think it starts, way back. My first job was, I was working in restaurants, waiter, busboy, bar back. Got into management. Was convinced to go into management. So doing that and working, just watching people, watching how the community worked together, and some of the challenges in a restaurant where you have all these different roles, that have their different priorities. I look at the wait staff has theirs, busboys have theirs, the host is like, I need that table, I need this, I need that. Waiter is, I need waters on these tables, let's go. Bus person's like, I have 12 tables coming up here. You got the kitchen busting at people, come pick up your food, come pick up your food. And so I learned that you have all these types of people coming together with the goal of satisfying that customer. And I think that's where it started. And just watching that interplay between each group within the restaurant, watching the interplay between the manager and the team members, and how important that relationship was to make it all work. And I think that was the seed as I went from restaurants to working in customer service on the phones, to being a supervisor, to going to different organizations, managing teams, managing e-commerce teams, and then just trying to find my role in that situation.
So would you say then, I'm hearing you going back to the restaurants, you have the wait staff, you have the management, you have the people at the front. Would you say then that had a big impact on helping shape how you thought about empathy in the workplace?
Definitely. And again, I was a busboy starting out, and it was, I always felt that maybe the bus people were the low people on the totem pole. It was get me this, get me that, get me this. Very rarely did I hear thank you, um, or see the appreciation. All right, here's your 15% tips. Um, but I also knew that it was the bus people that sort of made that restaurant go. They were the ones that cleaned the tables. They were the one that picked up the empty food plates from the table. They were the one that the customer saw more often than anybody else in that restaurant. Um, so that's where I think that empathy of don't forget that frontline person. Don't because that's the person that's touching the customer. Don't forget that telephone customer service rep that every day is taking, 25, 50, 75 phone calls a day and getting, busted most of the time. Um, don't forget that person and to appreciate that person because they're getting the information. So yeah, that's where it started from, of that frontline worker that's right in front of the customer the most.
I feel like it's had a big impact on me really with my journey as well. I started off as a receptionist at Learnit. I taught some classes, did sales, and I moved into a leadership role. And doing all of those pieces of the job really helped put me in other people's shoes to see what their experience was like, and it was helps you really relate with your other team members.
I do that in the restaurants. I've done that in customer service now, with my teams where I was at Urban Remedy, managing customer service there. I was at Jamba Juice, managing customer service there. And in both places, at Jamba, I would give my customer service reps like a free smoothie card and say, go into one of our stores, they don't know you, and buy a smoothie and just experience what a customer would see. Were they friendly? Was the smoothie full? And just sort of mark off that criteria. The same with Urban Remedy. I would ask my team members, I'd say, all right, here's a promo code. Once a month, go place an order, B2C, get that order shipped to you, open it up. What does it look like? Are the salads open? Are you missing the product? And so there's that empathy where they can say when they get that phone call, yeah, I know that happens. And their first instinct isn't you're trying to rip us off. It's more, okay, I can understand that happening. And that's where they meet the customer from that standpoint.
So Van, how would you differentiate customer service from customer experience?
The customer service is more, in my mind, transactional. It's that I have a problem. Can you tell me this? Where's my order? It's that one-time thing. The customer experience is more how you made the customer feel. It's the Maya Angelou line about they'll forget what you said, they'll forget what you did for them, but they're not going to forget how you made them feel. And that, in my mind, is what the customer experience is. How did you make those customers feel? And I think it's that bridge between here's my problem, this went wrong, fix it, and the bridge to the customer experience is how did you fix that problem? How did you approach the person coming to you? And that's the customer experience. That stays with them. And I think it comes full circle where if it's a good experience for the customer, when they call you, they'll probably come at you like, all right, they get on the phone, they're going to take care of me. I don't need to sit there and yell and scream. I know it's going to be a positive experience and they're going to help me. So I think it is circular, but it's one's transactional, one-time thing. One is how that customer service rep took care of you and made you feel about resolving your issues.
And do you also think that customer service is a little bit more reactive and customer experience, you want to kind of get ahead of it and maybe even anticipate what could go wrong?
Yes, it is reactive. And the getting ahead of it is those are the data. It's all right. We got all this feedback. These are the issues that came in. And so now we take that, 10,000 data points and let's, drill down into maybe the two or three things that are really driving the key drivers for the customer. And let's focus on those and let's work with our internal business partners to try to solve those two or three key drivers and what those key drivers are. So it is taking that data, taking those phone calls, those emails, those social media posts, and saying these are the common threads. This is what people are really care about. These are the important things for our business to retain those customers and keep them coming back.
And I want to just kind of restate what I said when I said always looking for challenges or issues. It's also looking about obviously the most great experiences that people have that you want to look so you can strive and hit towards those. Now, when we spoke before, off camera, you were kind of talking about how you were able to turn your customer service team into really like insight engines. What does that really look like to be able to embed, the voice of the customer into a company's DNA?
I think you can do it a few different ways. But I think, again, going back to busboys and customer service, it comes down to that individual, the one that's really working with the customer face to face or on the phone or via email. And it's getting them to have the conversation with the team, with the customer, and then being able to take that information and then getting it to your business partners to know what the customers are asking for. At Jamba, it was friendliness. It was how quickly the order was made, and it's knowing what those key drivers are to really drive the customer satisfaction. At Urban Remedy, it was finding those departments. It was shipping, which was a big issue, and it was QA, and it's getting that data together and working with those two departments, knowing that they're the ones that are driving the biggest drivers for customer satisfaction, and getting them that information in a digestible way. They don't have time for a 30-page report. It's been, give me 2 sentences. Man, give me 2 things I need to work on. And working with them allows the customer service team, the reps, to be a powerful engine inside the company.
Now, let me ask you this, because a lot of times we're talking about frontline workers. Do you think that there's a risk of asking too much of your customer service team? You're expecting them to deliver insights, retain customers, solve problems. How do you avoid overloading them?
Once you start building that team, you'll see the different individuals, and they may have some may be set, this is what they can do, this is their threshold, where others are going to be challenged. They want to be challenged. Man, I want to do this. What else? What else? What else do you have for you? And when you have that team like that, you can rely upon the different individuals. And I look at it, we've talked about this before, it's baseball. And again, with me, it's baseball. You have the rookies, you have the grizzled veterans, and you have them work together as a team. And some are going to be there, I just want both. I just need to do this. Where others are going to be able to do the 2, 3, 4, and 5 things, and they're going to want that challenge. They're going to be wanting to build a career that builds it for a good year.
So as a new leader, or maybe just any leader, how do you identify the difference between somebody who maybe want more challenges or those who are just kind of fine where they're at?
Over time, you start to identify, and you have those conversations with team members. And you can tell some that are going to be like some of you are going to be very aggressive. And what else do you have? What else do you have? And you see them getting stagnant. But it's part of that conversation of offering training, offering other opportunities. I mean, at Jamba Juice, I had my I call it my minor league program, where I would, tell people when they came into the department, you're not going to make a lot more money in this department than what you're making right now. You might get another quarter raise or whatever, but I'll give you 10% of your time, 4 hours a week, 2 hours a week. And if there's a different department that you're interested in, I'll make introductions. You go there, you work for maybe a month, 4 hours a week for a month, a set amount of time. And if you like it, maybe somewhere down the line, if there's an opening, you can move to that department. And that worked out very, very well for us, in that over like a 4-year period, we had, I think 18 people from my team, a team of like 6, 7, 8 people that went to different departments throughout the company. And again, that's patting Learnit on the back. That's how I came to Learnit, is that we would have team members that would go to finance or accounts payable. And one guy went there, was there for a month, came back. He said, "Ben, I like accounts payable. That'd be a good department to work in." I spoke to the manager. She said, "Ben, he's a nice guy. He's earnest, but he doesn't have the skill set. He's taking him 10 keystrokes to do what he should be able to do in Excel in 2 or 3. And so we sent him to Learnit for a couple of Excel classes. He came back and he was this rock star of an Excel guru. And he ended up going to work in supply chain, international supply chain. And we did that with a few different people. We did that with the woman that went to work in our creative department. She went and took like Photoshop and a few other photo manipulation courses at Learnit. I did that way back when at Sharper Image. When I worked there, I took courses at Learnit for, I think, like MS Project or Excel or some other projects like that. So it's giving people those tools and seeing, are they going to take it? And if you open the door for folks, I think they're going to start running towards that door and be grateful for it.
And what I like about what you're saying is, so you're saying, to recap that, you had probably 18 different employees at Jamba Juice who got promoted into other positions outside of your department. And I think what's so great about that is, even though maybe they only received a 25-cent raise, you as a leader put 10% of their time aside to give them learning opportunities. Okay, sure, great. That's awesome about Learnit, but also learning and exploring in other departments. I think there's a lot of leaders out there, Van, who wouldn't do that because they're going to be losing their top employees into these other departments, which gets them out of their comfort zone, and it's putting themselves first. And really what you're doing is you are, listeners, what Van's doing is he's being a people first leader. So it's not about him. You're making it about everybody else.
I also had ulterior motives because in my mind, I have these folks that were in my customer service department working, and then they go to a different department, and I know, and it may only last for 6 months or a year, that they're still going to have that customer service mindset. And if they're in a marketing meeting, in marketing saying, "We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this," someone in that room will say, "Yeah, but when you do that, this is what the customer says." And on that email you send out, you really do need to have only in these stores, in the small print. And so it is, doing good for my team members, but it's also instilling that customer service mindset throughout the company. And I think that's what I got out of it for company-wide engagement through the process.
When I think of the customer service or customer experience mindset, is getting your team, training them to learn how to own the resolution. What's been your experience over time? And maybe you can share a story about how you can get people to take ownership and see something through without always having to go back to management for help.
I think it's easier to pull somebody back as far as accommodations or customer service than it is to push them out. And I would tell my team members, you know what, you know, I'm more likely to come to you and say, you maybe can offer them more. Maybe you should offer them this instead of saying you gave them too much. I would tell customers, you know what, if you don't give that to the customer, they're going to come to me. Let me talk to your manager. And if for some reason I say no, they're going to go over my head. They're going to go to the vice president or the CEO or whatever. And I said, well, you know what? There's your salary. Then there's, 20 minutes of my time. Then there's 20 minutes of my boss's time. Then there's 20 minutes of the CEO's time. And that the money gets higher as you go up that chain of command. And in the end, the CEO is going to come back to me and say, Van, can you take care of this? And so I'm telling them, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. You're not going to get in trouble for giving them too much. You're going to make it easier on yourself. Because if you're fighting with that customer on the phone for 5-10 minutes, you're going to hang up the phone and you're going to still be bent out of shape from that last phone call. Another phone call comes in, the next phone call comes in, you're going to be like, okay, now what? And you're going to have that mindset for the next customer that comes in. So own it. Again, I'm going to say yes. Van, can I do this? Yes. Van, this customer wants to ship this package, 2-day air instead of 7-day ground. Can I do that as an accommodation to them and not charge them? Yes, you can. And again, that builds confidence in that team member to own it, and that builds that customer experience from the customer's perspective of, yeah, these guys are taking care of me. They're gonna make mistakes every now and then, but I know they're gonna take care of me. And that just makes that relationship between the company and the customer healthier. And I try to impress that upon the team member, that's our goal, is customer satisfaction.
But let me ask you this. There's the old saying, the customer's always right. That's not always true. Do you think that there's ever times where you're leading a team and the customer is taking advantage and the customer service rep should be giving them polite pushback instead of just, saying yes, yes, yes all the time?
I don't think the customer is always right, but I think it's rare that the customer is trying to actively rip us off. I think out of 100 times, it might be 5 times less than that they're saying, I'm going to call up and we're going to take advantage of these people. They may just think, I'm not happy with the way this went, so let's talk about this. But there have been times where they talk to the rep, we say, no, this just isn't it. And it may come down to, you know what, we may not be the company for you. And again, I think I've only done that in my career, maybe 5 times, if that many times, where you're actually on the phone saying, you know what, we may not be the best experience for you, and you may need to go somewhere else. And so, but that's a conversation we have up and down the line in the company, where they just say, yeah, Van, no, just say no. Sometimes it is just say no.
Sometimes you just send those people to your competitors. Go take classes from these guys, and it's like, drop, right? You said it, like, go let them go blow up their organization, as far as disruption when it comes to it.
And if you have a good tracking system, you can tell the customers, just like you can tell the customers that come in order every week or every month, light, medium, and heavy users. You also can tell the customers, and we had it at Jamba Juice, they call in, they're going to complain about something, you're going to send them a free smoothie card. They're going to, use that free smoothie card. They're going to call again. So I had another bad experience. Okay, you know what? We sent this address, 5 free smoothie cards in 2 months. And then we can track in our system. It says, well, this free smoothie card was used on this purchase, which is this person, and it goes back and back and back. So with the right system, you can track people who abuse your generosity, the kindness of strangers.
One question I was thinking about in my mind is, okay, you're a leader. Let's say you're a leader. You have a customer service rep who's got one perception of a story, and you have a customer who thinks the exact opposite of what's going on. How do you balance between having the back of your employee and also trying to balance it with satisfying the customer?
I that's going to be that process of maybe instilling confidence with that team member, where if it's, we've had a very good relationship, we're having open conversations, throughout their stay in the department. Is this an aberration? And is it, all right, this customer, maybe they did have the wrong tone. Maybe they are asking for something too much. But again, in my mind, if it gets to us, it's probably an issue, whether it's at a store or at an order. But is it possible that the customer, their tone was wrong, but they're right about the issue? And is it the issue, or is it that customer's tone that's setting that rep off? And if it's the tone, that's right. Are they having a bad day? Or do they come at you in a way that's derogatory? And if that's it, then maybe I'm going to have the conversation with the customer, and I'll be honest. Well, this is how the rep heard you say that. Well, I said that, but I was pissed off at that. Okay, but this is the reality of it, and I'll sit in there between them to try to resolve it. But then I'll go back to the rep and say, again, you're not wrong in how you feel, but this is how I think we're going to do this. But we know who that customer is, to see if it's something that happens frequently. But that can be a challenge.
It can be a challenge, and it just kind of reminds me of, we've had look at 20 reviews from a class, and 17, 18 are fantastic, and 2 are poor. You can't just jump to the teacher to didn't do a good job in the class. It could have been these people were having a bad day, or maybe they just didn't connect. And you have to kind of balance it, because you want to take care of your customer, but you want to have the backs of your people, because if you don't, I think it erodes trust if people feel like that their leader's not going to have their back in a situation like that. Let's talk a little bit about, you're really big on tracking and data. How does data play into the overall leading of a customer experience team and benefiting both the organization and the customer?
There's all this data that's coming in, and the telephone reps checking emails, and they have this stuff in their heads. They know it. They know. I think if you ask a frontline rep, if you get 10 phone calls, how many will be this, this, and this? And they can probably tell you those numbers, bam, without looking at without looking at specific charts, because they hear it all the time. But getting that from them in a digestible form to the departments, that's the challenge. Because I can put together a chart that shows the top 10 issues for the company and how often it happens and the cost of it. But you have 20 departments in the company, And they don't want to see all that. They want to know what does this mean to me? And that's what I think I've been very good at, is pinpointing those departments that um, are most affected by the data and working with them to say, well, this is some data I have. And they'll say, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. And then over time, they start to come back at me. Okay, Ben, you told me this. Can you tell me this? Well, what does this mean? Can you drill a little deeper in these things? And it's setting up those relationships where it's not just shipping. All right, we're having shipping issues. Okay, then what does that mean? Well, it's fulfillment. We're missing products. We're out of stock on items. Packaging is not done well with the boxes. Retail stores, customers are unhappy with their in-store experience. Well, then what does that mean? It means that people aren't friendly. They're not being greeted. They're not being given samples. So it's breaking it down into, digestible bits of information that can be passed along to that frontline rep in the stores or in shipping. At Jamba Juice, initially it was feedback was customers or team members weren't friendly. And so we said, you got to be friendlier. And so then in the stores, people were just joking around and having a good time behind the counters. And said, no, that's not what the customer meant. By friendly, they meant when they walked into the store, were they greeted? When they were handed their juice, did they say, well, we said thank you, and call them by their name? It's those type of things. Were they suggestively sold something? So it's not just friendly. It's what does that mean? Not that that's this. What does this mean that's actionable for that department?
You've been in customer-facing roles for decades now. How have you seen the customer experience evolve over these decades? And do you think it's changed for the better or the worst as far as what the customers are expecting from the companies that they're purchasing from?
I still think it comes down to, if I place an order, if I'm coming to you for some sort of service, I want good service. And that may change a little bit what that means in terms of how I'm going to give it to you, whether it's, AI, there's more phone trees now, there's more options on the menu, there's more way to order your food now. Before, when you walk into a restaurant, you sit down, you came in, you placed something on order. Now I can order ahead. Now I can order, 8 o'clock in the morning, say I wanted to come pick it up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's more ways to get to that service. But I still think it comes down to how you treat that individual and how they receive that service. And, things can get in the way a little bit of that, but I don't think we can forget that basic tenet of there's the customer, there's the company, and they're, in most cases, they're a one-to-one relationship where they're dealing with a person at some level, and that has to be at the core of how you deal with your product, your service, and your company.
On one hand, you have Amazon, for instance, Amazon, which makes the buying experience very easy. Trust me, I know there's packages at my house every day. Very easy. Then on the other hand, we were talking about this beforehand. You want to book a hotel room for $1,000 a night at a 5-star hotel, you got to go through a phone tree and hit 5, 6 different numbers before you actually get a hold of somebody. And I just feel like, I want to hear what you have to say about this. I just feel like that if you can go back to humanizing customer experience in a lot of ways, or making it very easy and taking out some of the roadblocks, that can really just set you ahead.
If I'm booking a hotel, I'm going to go. I know the sites I'm going to go to. Airline tickets, I know the sites I'm going to go to because I guess I know how to get where I want to go the fastest. But I'm also going to pay attention to how easy was it for me to book that hotel? How many pages did I have to go through to
Hmm.
get to it? Was it 2 clicks or was it 3 clicks? When I read reviews, um, were the reviews up front? And then when I got to that hotel, did the pictures on the website match the experience? And if they were too far apart, yeah, okay, and I don't mean this in a bad way. That's marketing.
Uh-huh.
That's just marketing, and that's not the truth of the matter. Um, but again, when I get to that hotel, when I get to that airline, it's going to be that experience with that individual. And if going through the website was a challenge, when I get to that hotel and it's a good hotel, the people are friendly, I'm going to come back to them because I know I jumped through some hoops, but that's a good hotel. The people are friendly. That airline, there's going to be a delay, but the people that treated me well, and they talked to me and not at me.
Speaking of airlines, and I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Southwest, which used to have the best customer service, I think they just announced yesterday that they're stripping out all of the customer service friendly things that they did for all these years. You know, what do you think about that? How are they going to be able to go from here?
I just read that I think starting in
May.
May, there's going to be no more free booking or free luggage checks.
Yep.
They stopped the way that you board planes. That's changing now. Um, and I'm sure there's going to be some push off or push back from that, but they're going to be like everybody else now.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's going to be there. And will there be another differentiator in there? I mean, JetBlue years ago, they were sort of like the beautiful child, and that's the fly JetBlue, and they've taken a step back, I believe, as it's not the same. They're like the same as everybody else now. So what's going to be the differentiator between the different airlines? That'll be the question that comes up.
Exactly. At lunch today, I was talking to one of my friends, and they said just that Southwest is just going to be like everybody else, and I wonder what their game plan is going to be. We talked a little bit about AI. Is there anything when it comes to AI, because that's the buzz around everything, HR, learning and development, and even customer experience? Is there anything specific? Do you think that we should definitely not hand off to AI when it comes to customer experience?
I think there should always be a way um, to get to a human being, and there should be fewer roadblocks to get to that human being, even whether it's chat or a phone call. That it shouldn't take you operator to get to a human being. Um, I've been with internet supplier yesterday, and I'm hitting it. Oh, this is chat. Yeah, this is it. Oh, like no. Give me a real person. Give me a real person. Let me chat to somebody. Um, so I think AI can give you information, and then you can massage that AI into putting it for that individual request. But at some point, I would be able to get to a live human being without going through 30 clicks on my computer and yelling operator or hitting no. Um, yeah, that's the challenge of AI. We're maybe using it for too much and not massaging it enough per industry.
Now, a lot of people think that AI will eventually replace most frontline and service roles. Do you think that's fear mongering, or is that something that you envision could really happen in the next decade or so?
I think again it'll get better and better, and as technology builds, when you call if you call an 800 number, they probably know who you are by your phone number. They should know by your phone number who you are. They could probably tell right there and then what you've ordered, what your past feedback has been. They probably know all of that. And so I think AI can take all that and deal with you on a one-to-one basis up to a point. But again, at some point, I'm going to want to know, all right, now why is this? And how can I get this done? And why did my hotel reservation get canceled? And you're going to need human interaction. And I would imagine we're going to swing the pendulum too far this way to AI, and then we're going to start coming back, and we'll find that right spot where everything's working communally and working the way it should. But I think we will swing this way too far, and then we'll come back where it's at that point that's working for everybody.
Van, we're kind of coming up on time here, and I really enjoy our conversation. What is one thing that you wish every leader understood about customer experience, and what does that really say about their leadership style?
The customer experience comes down to the human interaction. Technology plays a role in it, but I think it comes down to human interaction. And that's, here's my issue, here's the company. How do we get those two things together with all the technology? I think we shouldn't forget the importance of people, the importance of getting on a phone call or an email and knowing that at the other end of that email or that chat, there really is a person there typing back at me versus here's a template, here's another template, here's another template. So that's what I would hope leaders understand, is that it comes down to people talking to people to resolve issues, to build that experience. They're going to forget what you did, they're going to forget what you said, but they're not going to forget how you made them feel. And that's the customer experience part of it that I hope leaders don't forget. Whether it's the customer or your team members, they're going to remember how you made them feel.
No, that's great. I mean, Van, you've been awesome. Just to go back and what we talked about, if we talked about the difference between customer experience and customer service, and how customer experience can really be a leadership strategy, just not a support function. We talked about how important your frontline team is, how that a lot of ideas bubble up from them. And it's important to use and learn and use the data that you have. And most of all, I think it's about being human and keeping in mind that it's not really what you're selling or what you're doing, but how you make people feel. That's what they're going to remember at the end of the day.
That is it. I mean, again, there's 30,000 smoothie shops in the world. There's all these different healthy options around the world that you can take advantage of. But it's when you think of that company, how does it make you feel? And that's going to be a differentiator. It's going to take you from Southwest to JetBlue to other airlines. How do they make you feel when you're interacting with them?
Thank you, Van. Where can our audience connect with you at?
LinkedIn, Van Battle. I'm there. Feel free to drop me a note, connect with me. I'd love to have conversations with people about this.
Well, thanks for coming on today. I always enjoy our conversations, and it's been great getting to know you. So thank you, Van. And for our audience, do me a favor, if you haven't already, rate and review Learnit, the Learn It All podcast on your favorite podcast channel. It really helps get our message out. And if you know somebody who's in a customer experience role, or let's say that they're in a leadership role that oversees a customer experience team and they could get value out of this conversation, do me a favor, send it to them. I think Van's got some great tips in here today. And until next time, everybody, stay curious, keep learning, and have a great day. See ya.
Here's the deal I'm finding. Fewer people today want to be champions than ever because they're afraid of being on the wrong side of the decision. They're kind of